Hello gamers and welcome back. I'm Rob, of course, or Warshak if you want to call me by my in-game name. And as we know, getting closer and closer to the expansion, more and more exciting cards are being released. Unfortunately, I'm not getting to them as I want because I'm not really feeling that great. I'm like having to put the smile on and, try to pump through this video. I really, as there's a lot of cool cards, there's a lot of diversity in this set, and I wish I had the brain power to spend a little bit more time and take a look at these cards because there's a lot of cool stuff and a lot of legendaries being released. So hopefully by tomorrow, the next day, I'll be feeling a lot better. But I need to make this video because, like I said, every day I don't want to get overwhelmed with cards. Tomorrow we'll go over like 50 cards, which is just craziness, right? I want to keep it in the 10 to 20 range. So the first card we're going to look over is the Warrior Legendary card. It's going to be Black Howl Gunspire. It's a 7 mana 3/8, can attack. So very similar to like the Rag, can attack. So what is it going to do if it's stationary? Hopefully shoot some shit at people. Whenever this minion takes damage, deal 1 damage. Or whenever this minion takes damage, deal 3 damage to a random enemy. So very synergizes very well with what we know the warriors do. Dealing 1 damage, 2 damage, 3 damage to our own minions. We can do quite a few things in a single turn. It's actually really annoying for your opponent to get rid of because besides Hex, Polymorph, and things like that, they're going to have to trade into this. I guess maybe not. They could just theoretically ignore it. Because when you play this card, it can't attack. And if you're not actively dealing damage to it, like giving this minion attack more, like the first thing I thought was like Cruel Taskmaster, take 1 damage and it gets +2 attack. But giving this minion attack doesn't do anything. If you want to silence this minion so it can attack, then it loses out on its ability, right? So the key here is to give this minion some form of like taunt or make your opponent have to kill it, or you're going to end up dealing, 24 damage if it ends up taking 1 damage periodically. So maybe they're going to release a warrior card, maybe a common or a rare that has some form of synergy with this particular card. Deal 1 damage to a minion. If it survives, deal another damage to it, and it's like a 3 mana 2/2 or something. I don't know how it's going to work. But I figure they're definitely going to be at least 2 more warrior cards. I guess the new what is it, Warpath or something, that's really good. You play this and then Warpath the following turn 5 times for 15 damage if your opponent doesn't have anything on the board, which is actually really powerful for 2 cards. 15 damage, 2 cards, and this guy would still have 3 life left. Pretty impressive. Anyway, not what I had hoped when I look at the, when I imagined a new like a warrior legendary, hopefully being, at least a tempo dragon control S card. Obviously this is very much so leaning towards the control side of things. It's hard to rate this card as of now because, like I said, warrior has it's kind of in a weird spot. It doesn't have too many of each. It has like pirates going on, it has like this weird tempo formation going on, and it has like a wannabe control, and they're not like they're not diving into just one kind of warrior at the moment. Like, as we've seen a lot of the other classes, they really like pigeonhole exactly what you're going to be playing with that class. But warrior is one of those ones that it's kind of just like there's not any true nothing solidifying, right? It's like trying to fucking make something and like flubber, and you don't even got nothing. You got nothing. You can't even make flubber. So, and flubber is a flubbery kind of dude. So, I don't know. Moving to the next warrior card, I think this one's actually really good. It's the 5 mana 4/4 rush. After this attacks and kills a minion, get 2/2. So it's basically a 5 mana 6/6 with rush. Well, it's a 4/4, but after it's going to be a 6/6. So I think this card is really good. Any card that, I mean, basically has charge and it gets a buffed after it kills a minion. Most of the time, it's going to be able to probably kill a minion if you're playing against any form of, aggro mid-range, or sometimes even other control decks, just being able to do that 4 damage. But it has to actually kill the minion, so you can't like attack this and then kill it with something else, obviously. So just make sure ordering is going to be really important with this card. It may seem like pretty simple at first, but I've done it before with Frostmourne. You just like attack with Frostmourne, attack with the minion. You're like, oh shit, I should have actually killed it with the Frostmourne, not just dealt damage to the minion with the Frostmourne. So I think it's a really good tempo card, really good. And this can actually see play in tempo warrior. It can see it. An aggro warrior could see play. It's a little hefty for aggro warrior, but still a good card. And definitely in some forms of control warrior, I would play this card. It's just a good card. It's a good solid card, basically in all situations. Moving to the next one, we have the Priest legendary card. We got a lot of legendaries, guys. This one, in my opinion, is probably one of the best that's been printed thus far, besides one we haven't gone over yet, which I think is really good. It's going to be, in my opinion, close to broken if it's, works out the way I think it will. This is each turn, this is in your hand, transform it into a card and your opponent is holding. So Not that this card is ultimately powerful as itself, but the ability to kind of see what's in your opponent's hand every turn allows you to not only play around those cards, figure out what's in your opponent's hand, but also, you know, obviously if you're playing a warlock against someone with like a warlock with large AoE spells, you can kind of wait to hit that card and then you plan to use it. You also know if they'll have it in their hand. I think this card is just like super fucking good. I think this is like an auto include into any control priest. Maybe not so much like combo priest, because this isn't necessary when you're playing like a combo priest deck. The cards in the deck are there for a very specific reason, and when you start deviating from the cards that have like their very specific purpose, it makes the combo and synergies within the deck a lot more inconsistent. So having cards like this and more of like a control priest that isn't dependent on like multiple card combinations opens up a lot of possibilities for control priests to be even stronger. They're losing. We got to think we're losing operative here. We're losing a lot of key control priest cards. So what's gonna make the room? Obviously this guy. He's really really good because he's a legendary. You only can play one of them. Thank God, and a really powerful card. A lot of other people were talking about the Coffin Crasher, the 6 mana 6/5 Death Rattle. Summon a Death Rattle minion from your hand. So obviously the first instinction is the Obsidian Statue. A lot of people were talking about that guy. And there's like combos with this and a couple other cards that, you know, you're able to multiply this and then make a field full of Obsidian Statues. And overall, pretty solid card. I don't think it's as broken as people think originally, because it is, you know, keep in mind it's a 6 mana 6/5. But it's very slow. It's a slow card. Big Priest is known to be slow in the early game. It's very dependent on Spirit Lash, Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death, you know, Coin, Dragonfire, stuff like that to be able to kind of hold the board down, especially Barns. So when you've got cards that cost more than 6 mana, it's still very, very weak to aggressive base decks, including aggressive base decks that have silence, because you could just silence Obsidian Statue, and then it becomes basically, it loses taunt, it loses the lifesteal, it loses the death rattle. So there's definitely ways to get around this kind of card. Not to say it's not good. It is definitely going to see play in the specific deck that it belongs. You know, Death Rattle Priest, Quest Priest, maybe some forms of Big Priest, maybe some form of combo, you know, OTK Priest that may pop up. But overall, I don't think it's as good as what people are originally saying about it. I think people are kind of overhyping this guy. I've seen a lot of hype around him. But this other card, I think the hype for this girl is actually much warranted. It's the 6 mana 5/5 Lady in White. Battlecry, cast Inner Fire on every single minion in your deck. That's fucking insane, in my opinion. Because you're able to play, you know, there was a meme, Magma Rager, I think it was. He's a 3 mana 1/5, so it makes a 3 mana 5/5. You've got the Warden, it would basically be a 4 mana 7/7 because he's a 4 mana 1/7. But the problem with the Lady in White is it's going to be very, very, very similar to, as we remember, you know, Kazakus Priest, Kazakus Mage, and drawing Raza on 5. So instead of, you know, Raza on 5 now, it's Lady in White on 6. So, you know, they draw this in the early game. They get the cards that do crazy shit. You know, you can even play, you know, Humongous Razor Leaf now, the 3 mana 3/8. And it's now a 3 mana 8/8, and all you have to do is add a silence now. You don't have to, you know, Inner Fire and silence. All you have to do now is silence it. But I guess cast Inner Fire on the minion, which means if it gets silence, it loses the Inner Fire. So maybe the silence. All right, never mind. Take that back. Scratch that. I don't want to hear comments about it. I know one guy's gonna be like, "Oh, you're silencing me. You're so dumb." I caught myself. Simmer down. It's going to be one of those cards that if they draw it early in the game, it's insane. And if they don't draw it until like later, you know, bottom 5, their whole deck, you know, was based around being able to do Inner Fire. Not to say that these decks will probably still play Inner Fire, but this just makes the Inner Fire thing more consistent, right? Because they already get Inner Fire. There's 2 of them in the deck. They can Shadow Visions, Inner Fire, and shit like that. So there's ways around it, but she just makes it so like you don't have to like Geist. I guess Geist is rotating, but anyway, it just makes it a little bit more consistent. And by a little bit more, I mean like a lot more consistent, like stupid consistent. Cursed Castaway, the 6 mana 5/3 rush Death Rattle, draw a combo card from your deck. So it's a 6 mana, basically kill a minion, probably. Death Rattle, draw a card. I want to say this card isn't as bad as what it looks like because of the rush. If this card did not have rush, this card is fucking atrocious. Oh crap. Dad just texted me that they have cannelloni with spinach. Oh, that's interesting. I had cannelloni for the first time, guys, a couple weeks ago, and I really enjoyed it. For those of you who don't know what cannelloni is, and it has it doesn't mean anything with this video. It has no connection. It's like a noodle, but inside the noodle is like chicken and cheese and spinach. Super fucking good. Back to Curious Getaway. I don't think it's pretty bad. I don't think it's pretty bad. It's there's good, there's like neutral, there's bad, and it's between like neutral and bad. It's like somewhere in here. It's not absolutely atrocious bad. It's not normally good. It's just not the greatest. Yeah. This other card though, I think this card's actually pretty good. Cheap Shot. The 2-mana Echo, deal 2 damage to a minion. So as of now, we know our rogue doesn't really have any like medium size, or I should say small to medium size spells that deal small damage repetitively. We look at like, we see Fana Knives, Shiv, Abyss, and then we had Jade, Shuriken, but that's no longer a thing. So with that, you know, we don't always want to execute a minion, or eviscerate a minion, I should say, because we only have 2 of them in the deck. It does 4 damage. So this kind of gives us a way to deal damage to maybe a bunch of small minions that's more than just the Fana Knives. It also combos well with cards like Auctioneer. You know, you have Auctioneer out, you can echo this card continuously to do damage. Also, in my opinion, Malagos isn't bad. It's a nice little field card, but I guess if you have Malagos and you can Fana Knives, you're doing 6 to everything for 3 mana. So maybe not so much Malagos. Cheap Shot. If this was not only to damage to a minion, this could actually go face, it'd be fucking insane. If this could go face, this card would be so good. Originally, I didn't read the minion part, and I got super excited because I thought maybe Malagos Rogue could be a thing. But now that it, you know, obviously just says minion, Malagos Rogue pops out of the picture. But either way, I still think this card is pretty good. Pretty good. It looks a little underwhelming, but overall, pretty excited about it. Wanted, the 4-mana, deal 3 damage to another, deal 3 damage to a minion. You're locking me down here, Blizzard. Give me some shit that does face. I like the face. If it kills it, add a coin to your hand. I think this, any sort of miracle slash combo slash Malagos Rogue will always play cards like this. Deal damage to minion, get coins. Coins equal more card draw equals consistency, and drawing combo pieces you need to kill your opponent faster. So Wanted, good card in those kinds of decks. Will this see play in like, would this see play in Tempo Rogue? Absolutely not, because for 4 mana you'd rather play a minion and actually put some board presence than actually clear a minion. But as we know, with the more not control, but like combo and Miracle Rogue-esque, it's not all about putting minions on the board. It's sometimes better to like start putting things together to get your combo rolling with cards like Auctioneer. Emerson, I think this card is super cool. I'm not really sure how good it's gonna be, just because I'll explain why. But overall, I love cards like this. Big, giant fucking minions that have huge impacts. Like, your deck has to kind of work well with this guy. Obviously, like Lady in White, your deck is built around Lady in White. But if you draw Lady in White early and you play her early, you win the game. If you play this guy on turn 10, your opponent's not like, oh my god, I can't believe he had this on turn 10. It's like, they waited the whole fucking game for this guy, unless they top deck it right on 10. And that's kind of unfortunate, right? But like cards like this, big mana cost, big abilities. And he's a 10 mana 8/8 dragon, which is interesting for a hunter card. And it says Battlecry, double the attack and health of all minions in your hand. So this isn't like something that's going to affect your entire deck, so drawing it early on, it's just in your hand. But as we know, Hunter really doesn't have that many fucking cards in his hand past turn like 5 or 6. So this is definitely more so like into like mid-range slash late game Hunter. So this is like big, like a dragon Hunter would be so fucking sick in my opinion. If that ever becomes a thing. I really think this card is super cool. Like the artwork, I'm sure this card Golden is going to look beautiful. And I really like, what I would have wanted is this to be more a druid card. I wish this was a druid card. I wish this was like a big fucking tree or something like Stonewood Tree Golem. And it was a 10 mana 8/8. And it said all, you know, taunt minions in your deck are fucking giant now. That would be such a cool, big, flappy taunt druid card to throw down there and make me make that deck pretty good that they've been pushing for a long time. So it's really weird that they would make this a hunter card, right? But now Savannah Highmane is a 12 attack, 10 HP, 6 mana card. Like, you play this card, and if that shit's in your hand, your opponent is so fucked. But this card is so slow, and then you have to hold Savannah Highmane until you play this card. So like the key for this is gonna be like the ability to trigger battle cries if shit is already on the board, or trigger a battle cry from your deck through a card. So it's like a, you know, a 3-mana 2/2, and it says trigger a random battle cry in your deck. Hits this, your hand's buffed. So maybe they'll make something like that, but I feel like that would be just so broken. I feel like that would be so good, but it's definitely an idea. Trigger battle cries from the deck, you know, or it could be like a 6-mana 4/4, discover a battle cry from your deck, and then you could pick this. Again, super fucking sick. That'd be disgusting, and I would never want to go against it. But definitely, I think that might be a thing, because why else would they print this card? And they already have a card similar to that. They've got the 3-mana 2/2, discover a card in your deck, right? Discover a beast in your deck, or a minion. It's like the I don't remember his name. He has like some fucking tarp on his back. He hunts animals. I don't know. Hunting Mastiff, a 2-mana 2/1 beast, Echo Rush. This kind of just falls into line of a decent 2-drop for face hunters to play. It doesn't have charge. It has rush. Hey, 2-mana. Ooh, I don't know. So for 10 mana, you can do 10 damage. But they can't go face. It's not a bad clear. This is basically a comeback mechanic for a hunter. So for like, you have 6 mana, you can do 6 damage to a minion on the board. This basically comes down to how much mana do you have. You can either like play 2 minions and trade, or you can play 2 minions and just let your turn go. I actually, more than I think about this card, I actually like it a little bit more than I originally thought, just because it gives hunters the ability to fluctuate kind of what they want to do. And the cards that have a little bit of variance to them, they're not only good in, you know, one particular situation, I think is important. So this guy, of course, like we said, he can start clearing boards. He could clear 1 giant minion. You just keep playing them and trading in. Or you could just play them just to fill up your boards with 2/1. Not the best thing, but you could do either or, right? Like, you've got some diversity there. So not too bad. I like the artwork on this guy a lot. I don't know why, but I really like the artwork. The Forest Guide, the 4-mana 1/6. At the end of your turn, both players draw a card. Papa. He's like, what kind of linguine do you want? I'm like, I said I wanted a cannelloni. So I'm not sure. Like, this guy, like Mildred and Wild, I know is like is kind of a memey thing. This could fit into maybe some form of like combo Druid to just try to get your combo, but Druid already has a shit ton of draw. You run Nourish, UI, you know, Branching Paths, Wild Growth late game is draw, Wrath. So I just really don't know where this guy fits in to the current builds of Druid that would actually be better than something else you could already play. If this guy had like a Taunt or something like that, maybe you could make way for like a Taunt Druid that didn't need to run as much draw, because you have minions that have built-in draw and with Taunt, so that would kind of make sense. But overall, you know, this guy's just, I don't see where he fits. Like, nothing stands out to me with this guy of being overwhelmingly cool that I would normally play him over like stuff that we could already have or stuff that we may actually obtain. This card, Paladin, looking at the Paladin card, the 2-mana Sound the Bells, Echo, giving minion +1/+2. So this actually already exists as a 1-mana buff, but because it has Echoes, it gives you ability to kind of play it over and over again. Again, you know, like the card, I can't, I think it's called like Divine Strength or something. And it's just the 1-mana, give a minion 1/2, and that's all it does. But this gives you the ability, you know, at turn 4, turn 6, turn 8, you can play this multiple times, which I really, really like. And I think this is a very strong card. I think this is pretty good. Granted, it's not as good as cards like Blessings of King, because Kings, you know, it gives a minion +4/+4 for 4 mana, and this would give the minion +2/+4 for 4 mana. But the key is this has Echo, and Blessings of Kings does not. So Quest Paladin, not that it, you know, it's ultimately is super good, but this falls in line with cards like that. You could also see this being played in more so aggressive Paladins, because they want to not Kings 1 minion and that minion gets silenced. They want to put buffs on a variety or multiple different minions, so it makes, you know, targeting it with silence or AoEs a little bit more resistant, or single target removal. You know, they play the Kings on a Silverhand Recruit, makes it a 5/5, you hex it. But if you spread out, you know, the 1/2 on 2 different targets, so that may actually work out for you better if your opponent only has the single target removal. The next card we're going to talk about is the 4-mana Vex Crow, 3/3 beast. Whenever you cast a spell, random, summon a random 2-cost minion. Originally, people were looking at this card, and I was reading, and they were like, oh, you know, this is a control card. You know, you play this and you play a bunch of spells and you fill up your board that normally, as we know, control mage doesn't really play a lot of spells. But I ultimately think this would be played in more of a tempo slash super early game mage, because you want to play this guy and then play a bunch of super cheap spells just to fill your board up with a bunch of 2-mana minions. You know what I'm saying? So you play this guy, and ultimately maybe you have like a Sorcerer's Apprentice out, and you play like, you know, the Mirror Entity. It's not Mirror Entity. It might be Mirror Entity. But anyway, the make taunts, the zero attack, 2 HP taunts. You go Arcane Missiles. There's a lot of really cheap spells that you could play and kind of just combo. Even if this guy lives one turn and you have like a glyph into something, into like, you know, something you play, you could easily play 3 small spells in a single turn with mage and it not be like your hand gets fully diminished. So I think this card is going to be pretty good in the aggressive base mage. As we know, mage is the tempo mage is actually losing out on a bunch of I wouldn't say absolutely key cards, but important cards to the deck that makes they're losing a lot of the minion end stuff. And I actually mentioned this, and I think our part 2 video reviewing the cards. No, it was on our cards rotating out, and I mentioned, you know, mage tempo mage is like 1/3 minions, 2/3 spells, and they're losing out on like half of the 1/3. And this is kind of just a replacement for those 1/3 that actually just puts more minions on the board, which is I think what I mentioned before. They're gonna have to have something that generates minions, or they're gonna have to have a decent minion, and this actually is both. It's not a terrible stat. It's not great, but it's not terrible, and it generates minions it synergizes well with the spells, which is what 2/3 of your deck is, and half of those spells are cheap spells. So I mean, this is kind of just exactly in line with what I kind of imagined them doing in replace of the minions that are rotating out. Blackwalled Pixie, 3-mana 3/4 Battlecry, refresh your hero power. So obviously going to be found in some form of combo deck that does hero power-esque things, or the decks where you can upgrade your hero power. Upgrade your hero power. This might see a little bit of play. Overall, the stats on it are pretty good, so maybe even in arena it could be pretty decent, just to play as a 3-mana 3/4. And if you know happen to be able to weave in a hero power, that's pretty good, right? I can't really seem to, this guy doesn't really ring any super bells for me. Ultimately, it's kind of self-explanatory. If we look at it, we have the, oh, what's his name? Man, I wish I was feeling a little bit better. I feel like groggy and like the names are just not popping up, even though I know them. I even went over Coinmaster Beardo. It's literally the same stats, and Beardo, for every spell you play, you know, you refresh your hero power. So this is like the same stats, but this is just a battle cry, refresh your hero power. So very, very similar to that card. Very, very similar. And the last card we're going to take a look at is the Ravencaller, the 3-mana 2/1 battle cry. Add 2 random 1-cost minions to your hand. I actually think this is pretty good for any oh man, if this guy was like I want to say if this guy is a beast, he could fit into Face Hunter really, really well. But overall, being able to battle cry out minions, especially basic, you're playing one minion and you're getting 2, and as we know, cards like that ultimately prove to be pretty good. We look at Babbling Book, Swashbuckler, Stonehill Defender, stuff like that. They always end up seeing play because they're not ultimately that great on them by themselves, but they're just a minion to play that generates something else that's could be decent, sometimes not, but ultimately getting 2 for 1, and this is basically a 1 for 2. So I don't see how this guy, I mean, his stats are pretty bad for the 3-mana mark, but he's still a minion that's generating other minions. So I don't think he's as bad as what he looks like. Will he see a ton of play? I don't know. I don't think, like, he's not terrible, because we've seen the past of what these kinds of minions, we call them terrible and they end up being good. But ultimately a 3-mana 2/1, I don't know. He might be just me, like more of like a budget, like he's basically a budget aggro card. He's a common that generates you 2 cards, and he can fit in aggro. So he can fit in Zoo, he can fit in Face Hunter, he can obviously fit in like some form of aggro shaman, you know, the more the merrier, in lieu of cards like Bloodlust. So pretty good overall for, like, you know, budget based players. So with that wraps up all of the cards that are currently out as of now when I'm making this video. I'm sure more cards will get released shortly after this, and then I'll have to go cover those cards. But super excited, you know, as we are going over these cards, there's a lot of diversity, and I'll mention that again when I see some more cool stuff. But so far, I'm pretty impressed with the set. As of now, as we get closer and closer to summing up all of the cards, we'll kind of see the flavor of this set and exactly where it's going to go. But, you know, pretty stoked, pretty stoked. So with that, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video, of course. As always, I'm Robert Warshak, and happy whatever the hell day it is.